with a very, very unexpected start to the day today.
Well, this is not how I expected to wake up this morning. After I received the news, Malia walked in and said, Daddy, you won the Nobel Peace Prize, and it is Beau's birthday. And then Sasha added, plus we have a 3-day weekend coming up. So it's good to have kids to keep things in perspective.
President Obama, the 2009 Nobel Peace Prize laureate, has Sasha and Malia to keep things in perspective for him. The rest of us, turns out we're not so lucky.
I mean, it must be good to be the king. I guess his worldwide apology tour has worked.
I think he won the award for not being George W. Bush.
Yeah, I think it has diminished the award itself.
Our president is a worldwide joke. Folks, do you realize something has happened here that we all agree with the Taliban and Iran about, and that is he doesn't deserve the award?
You know, in George W. Bush's first term as president, the conservative Washington Post columnist Charles Krauthammer coined the phrase Bush derangement syndrome, accusing Bush administration critics of reflexively opposing the president no matter what he did. Bush critics would say things like, he started 2 wars he didn't win. He didn't get the people who attacked us on 9/11. 9/11. New Orleans, the immolation of the financial system, the collapse of the economy, torture in secret prisons, the biggest gap between rich and poor since the Gilded Age, turning a huge surplus into a deficit 4 times its size. Critics would say things like that about the Bush record, and the Bush defenders would just say, Bush derangement syndrome. You're crazy. You just hate the guy for no reason. The idea of Bush derangement syndrome stuck. Well, now in the Obama era, this president's critics are delighted that the U.S. lost our bid for the Olympics because President Obama played a part in the country seeking that bid.
Please, please, let me break this news to you. Oh, it's so sweet.
Oh, man, the worst day of Obama's presidency, folks. The ego has landed.
If anyone cares, Chicago is out. They were out on the first vote. So.
Yay, America lost. That'll put Obama in his place. Yeah, today, President Obama's critics expressed outrage that he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, claiming that it wasn't deserved, that he hadn't achieved anything that warranted it. In 1984, the Nobel Committee gave the Peace Prize to Archbishop Desmond Tutu for his as-yet unsuccessful efforts to topple apartheid in South Africa. Apartheid didn't fall for another 10 years after that award. I suppose they could have waited until 1994 to see how the fight over apartheid turned out and then awarded the prize based on that achievement then, but that's not actually the way the Nobel Peace Prize always works. In 1935, the Nobel Committee gave the Peace Prize to a journalist named Karl von Ossietzky because he symbolized domestic opposition to the rise of Adolf Hitler in Germany. I suppose they could have waited to see whether or not domestic opposition to Hitler in Germany toppled him, whether it worked out for them, and then they could have awarded the prize based on that achievement. But A, that never happened, and B, that's not the way the Nobel Peace Prize always works. President Jimmy Carter received the Nobel Peace Prize for his dogged pursuit of Mideast peace. I suppose they could have waited for Mideast peace to break out and then awarded the prize based on that achievement, but that's not the way the Nobel Peace Prize always works. Aung San Suu Kyi won the Nobel Peace Prize without toppling the Burmese military junta, which is still in control. Shirin Ebadi won the Nobel Peace Prize without ending tyranny in Iran. President Woodrow Wilson won the Nobel Peace Prize for creating the League of Nations and his work on the Treaty of Versailles at the end of World War I, though neither of those things lived up to their promise of preventing future wars. The Nobel Peace Prize not always, but often awards effort. It recognizes people trying in big ways to get the world on a more peaceful path. The deadline for nominations for the prize is February 1st of the year in which it's awarded. President Obama's critics say that by February 1st, he should not have been nominated. He had done nothing by then. And, by the way, he's done nothing since to deserve it.
We need a fundamental change if we're going to dig ourselves out of the hole that George Bush has placed us in. And that's going to require the kind of aggressive diplomacy. Preparation, yes. But the aggressive diplomacy, the personal diplomacy of the next president to transform how the world sees us, that is ultimately going to make us safer.
Before he was nominated for the Nobel, Mr. Obama had persuaded the people of the most powerful nation on earth to choose him and his vision of strength through diplomacy instead of the vision offered by his rival for the presidency.
I mean, that old Beach Boys song, Bomberan, you know, bomb, 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 bomb. Anyway.
Before he was nominated for the Nobel, Mr. Obama persuaded the people of the most powerful nation on earth, the only nation to have ever used a nuclear weapon in war, the holder of the biggest stockpile of nuclear weapons on earth. He persuaded the people of that country that the next president of the United States should try to abolish nuclear weapons worldwide.
This is the moment when we must renew the goal of a world without nuclear weapons. The two superpowers that faced each other across the wall of this city came too close, too often, to destroying all we have built and all that we love. With that wall gone, we need not stand idly by and watch the further spread of the deadly atom. It is time to secure all loose nuclear materials, to stop the spread of nuclear weapons, and to reduce the arsenals from another era. This is the moment to begin the work of seeking the peace of a world without nuclear weapons.
Before he was nominated for the Nobel Prize, Mr. Obama decided that the most powerful nation on earth would try again to work with other countries through international institutions. This reflected quite a change from the way things had been going.
The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry.
The last American president, he picked that guy to represent us at the United Nations. He was the top diplomat. Before he was nominated for the Nobel, Mr. Obama declared that the most powerful nation on earth would close its secret prisons and the prison it offshored in Cuba to avoid our own constitution. And he declared that the United States government would no longer support a policy of torture.
Guantanamo will be closed no later than 1 year from now. We can abide by a rule that says we don't torture, but that we can still effectively obtain the intelligence that we need. The message that we are sending around the world is that the United States intends to prosecute the ongoing struggle against violence and terrorism, and we are going to do so vigilantly, we are going to do so effectively, and we are going to do so in a manner that is consistent with our values and our ideals.
That was Mr. Obama's track record before February 1st, before the deadline for nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize this year. When he accepted it today, he said that he felt that he did not deserve it.
To be honest, I do not feel that I deserve to be in the company of so many of the transformative figures who've been honored by this prize. Men and women who've inspired me and inspired the entire world through their courageous pursuit of peace. But I also know that this prize reflects the kind of world that those men and women and all Americans want to build. A world that gives life to the promise of our founding documents. And I know that throughout history, the Nobel Peace Prize has not just been used to honor specific achievement, it's also been used as a means to give momentum to a set of causes. And that is why I will accept this award as a call to action, a call for all nations to confront the common challenges of the 21st century. This award is not simply about the efforts of my administration, it's about the courageous efforts of people around the world. And that's why this award must be shared with everyone who strives for justice and dignity. For the young woman who marches silently in the streets on behalf of her right to be heard, even in the face of beatings and bullets. For the leader imprisoned in her own home because she refuses to abandon her commitment to democracy. For the soldier who sacrificed through tour after tour of duty on behalf of someone half a world away. And for all those men and women across the world who sacrifice their safety and their freedom and sometimes their lives for the cause of peace. That has always been the cause of America. That's why the world has always looked to America. And that's why I believe America will continue to lead.
And he says the young woman who marches silently in the streets, he's talking about Neda Agha Sultan, who's, of course, martyred in the Iranian opposition movement. When he talks about the leader imprisoned in her own home, he's presumably talking about Aung San Suu Kyi, the leader of the opposition to the military junta in Burma. When he says the soldier who sacrifices on behalf of someone half a world away, he's presumably talking about the American soldier. President Obama's critics railed today that winning the Nobel Peace Prize is somehow an insult, that international encouragement and hope for success for an American president is something to be ashamed of. I never thought that I would quote Charles Krauthammer, but Obama derangement syndrome appears to be upon us. The American president just won the Nobel Peace Prize. By any reasonable measure, all Americans should be proud.